إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. I want to start out with this one hadith, inshallah. The best of the people are my generation. And this is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was mentioning about his companions. The best of the people are my generation, then those after them, then those after them. And I'm sure, of course, we've all heard this hadith. And much can be said about, how great and what made them great. If you go through the different examples of like Abu Bakr and how he gave all his wealth, before the Battle of Tabuk, or how Umar radiallahu anhu, when he took his shahada, and this is early on in the stage of the dawah, he went right up to the Kaaba and he's announcing to everybody that he's Muslim. And this is at a time when the Muslims are very weak and so forth, and they're being persecuted. And he even went up to the head of the persecution, Abu Jahl, and he just, I'm Muslim, what are you going to do about it? We have Uthman, how much money he was giving, to help the Muslims. He financed the well for the water. He financed battles. Whole caravans would be coming, and he would just give the whole caravan. In the fi sabilillah, we have the bravery of Ali radiallahu anhu. When he was a young lad, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was making migration, and Ali stayed in his bed and basically faced the potential of death because the Quraysh were basically camped around his house trying to prevent him from leaving. And then, of course, there's Bilal. There's so many stories about all the torture and that he went through and he endured, and he just persevered through all of it. And when you look at all of these, and again, there's so many examples that you can go, there's countless, mashallah. Individually, they're like giants, right? But there is something else that made that generation great, which I want to try to look into and focus on, inshallah. And to try to, bring that out is, if we had somebody like an Abu Bakr, or if we had somebody like an Uthman or a Umar today, how would such a Muslim of that caliber, how would they fare amongst us today? Would they get very far, or would they run into a problem where the Muslims around them start questioning, doubting? And if somebody's giving money, the Muslims will say, oh, there must be something, some agenda, some hidden something. If a Muslim stands up, and he's speaking the truth, again, the Muslims around them, how will we react? How will we respond? And so one of the things that we're missing, in addition to, of course, all the great things that they had individually, but collectively, what an amazing thing that they had, and that's illustrated in this hadith, another hadith, where the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the relationship of the believer with another believer is like a building, right? The bricks of a building, each strengthening the other. And here, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he claps his hands like this and put his fingers together, and he was saying that the Muslims were like this to each other, that they strengthen and support one another, like the bricks in a building. And when you think about that, what does that mean to strengthen one another and be a support for each other? I think part of that, in order to achieve that, was illustrated in Surah Hujurat. Where Allah, he goes through a whole bunch of things that he's commanding us not to do. And again, I'm giving the translation. The believers are but brothers, so make settlement between each of you, right? So if there's an issue between the brothers, you need to reconcile that difference and bring them back together. And he also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, let not a people ridicule another, right? Don't ridicule each other. Do not insult one another, and do not call each other with offensive nicknames. Avoid suspicion. Do not spy or backbite on each other. When you look at, and again, I'm just pulling out the little bits from the ayat, but when you look at all of these different things, all these things that Allah is mentioning are the things that break apart the bonds of brotherhood. That basically this structure, this building that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is saying the Muslims should be like, it shatters that and breaks it apart and crumbles it, right? Basically, and that's the problem that I think we understand it's going to face, right? Even if we see like a really good Muslim come today, how far are they going to get before they kind of get torn down by the way we are with each other? And there's a saying that kind of illustrates this. The saying it's a proverb, I think they call it, right? It takes one tree to make 1,000 matchsticks, but it only takes one match to burn down 1,000 trees. Just let that sink in. And that really, I think, illustrates in a very beautiful way, very succinctly what we kind of do a lot, unfortunately. We're very good at throwing matches, lighted matches, and starting fires, rather than being like what the Sahaba were like, which is they're trying to be the bricks in a building where they strengthen and support each other's. Yes, they're strong, but sometimes bricks are weak, and the strong bricks around will support those weaknesses and those shortcomings. And I wanted to share a few stories from the Sahaba which illustrate this point of how they were supporting bricks to one another rather than throwing a match. And the first story that I want to share is the story of Ka'b ibn Malik. Now this is a long story, and I'm just going to go straight to or try to zero in on that part of the story, which is focusing on this khutbah. And again, just a quick summary, Ka'b ibn Malik, he was one of the three Sahaba. At the time of Tabuk, the Prophet ﷺ was basically ordered all the Sahaba, they need to prepare themselves for this march, this big battle. It's heading up north. They had like 30 days to prepare for this. So they had a long time to get ready. It was a huge battle, and every able-bodied Muslim male had to go for this. There was no exceptions. Ka'b ibn Malik was one of the three that didn't go. There were munafiqeen who didn't go, but our story is not about them. Our story is about the believers. So now Ka'b is relating this story to his son. And this is years have passed by now, and he's telling him about what transpired in this event. And so specifically, again, I'm focusing on that part of the story, which is related to this story, to my topic here. Ka'b ibn Malik says to his son, Allah's apostle did not remember me till he reached Tabuk. So this is pretty far away. So while he was sitting amongst the people in Tabuk, he said, what did Ka'b do? And so a man from the Dar-us-Salaam said, O Allah's apostle, he has been stopped by his two burda, his two garments, and his looking at his own flanks with pride. Then Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he responded, what a bad thing you have said. By Allah, Allah's messenger, we know nothing about him but good. So right off the bat, you can see Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he's standing up for Ka'b. He wasn't going to let that go. He wanted that, no, we need to think good of him. That he must have a good reason why he didn't make it. And you go a step further, you notice even Ka'b also was protecting somebody. Because this was when he's relating this story to his son, this is years later on, he says, a man from the Banu Salama. This tribe that he's talking about, that's his tribe. In those days, at that time, the Arabs, they know their tribes inside and out, and they definitely know, who's married to who, what's the lineage, inside, outside, up and backwards. So he's definitely going to know who this particular person within his tribe was putting him down. He's going to know who that person is. But he didn't say it. He just simply said, a man of the Banu Salam. Even though this person had put him down and he had an opportunity to throw a match, he didn't throw the match. He held the match and he didn't put him, he didn't throw him under the bus. If we go to the next story, and this has to do with the slander of Aisha. And again, there was the rumor, basically, very simply, shortly put, there was a Ghazwa trip. The Sahaba went someplace. They were coming back. At that time, Aisha radiallahu anha was with them. And she lost the necklace. She went looking for the necklace. As she was looking for the necklace, the caravan, or the Sahaba, they got up and they left. And they didn't realize she was not with them when they left. And so Safwan, who was bringing up the rear, he came across Aisha by herself. So now it's Aisha and Safwan. So it's just a man and a woman by themselves in the desert. They try to catch up with the rest of the Muslims, as they're heading back to Medina. And they catch up. But now the rumors start, right? The mind goes wild. And of course, the Munafiqun, they were having a field day with this. Now, the thing about it, though, is there were some Sahaba who also started to spread the rumors and engage in the rumor mongering. And so the first one was Hassan ibn Thabit. Now, we know him to be the poet of Medina, right? That he was standing up for when the Quraysh were lampooning and ridiculing the Prophet, and ridiculing Islam and so forth. Thabit was the one who was standing up and answering them. So when, after the whole incident of the slander was taken care of and it was resolved and Allah, exonerated her in the Quran, afterwards, people were coming to Aisha and mentioning, Hassan and what he did, his part, what role he played in this. Now, this would have been an opportunity where Aisha could have thrown some matches. That's right. How could he do that? How dare he? I'm the wife of the Prophet, and he's going around saying what he's saying. But what does she say? He it was who used to rebut the poets, the anti-Muslim poets, on behalf of the Holy Prophet and Islam. Instead of throwing the match, she was reminding those that were around her the good qualities of Hassan ibn Thabit, trying to, downplay the bad thing that he had done and bring up the good thing that he did. And this is a beautiful example of, building that strengthening the bonds between the Muslims rather than throw matches, which would have been very easy to do at this particular point in time. Another example, again, out of this issue of the slander of Aisha, has to do with Abu Bakr. He was taking care of one of his, I think it was his nephew, Mista bin Uthafa. Abu Bakr was a generous person. He's always helping everybody. He's also helping his family and his extended family. But this Sahabi, Mista, he was going around spreading slander. He was spreading the rumor. He was engaging in that. And the thing about the rumor was that when it first came out, Allah did not exonerate Aisha radiallahu anha for 30 days. So there was like 30 days that this rumor was going amongst the Muslims in Medina. So during that 30-day period, Mista was also engaged in that slander. But what was Abu Bakr's response to Mista? Did he cut him off? Did he go and yell at him? did he stop supporting him? For 30 days, there was nothing, there was no clear way to exonerate Aisha. Obviously, Abu Bakr knows Aisha's innocent, but he doesn't have any facts. He doesn't have any evidence, right? There's nothing there concrete that he can use. So he just all he could do is just stay quiet, and he did not cut off his relationship with Mistah. When the verse came down that exonerated Aisha, now he had his proof. So now he was like, I have nothing to do with you. I'm not going to support you. You're gone. I'm not helping you anymore. Then another ayah came from Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, basically, and let not those of virtue among you and wealth swear not to give aid to their relatives and the needy and the immigrants for the cause of Allah, and let them pardon and overlook. Would you not like that Allah should forgive you? And so, of course, at this, Abu Bakr immediately said, by Allah, we do want that Allah should forgive us. So he then started supporting Mistah again and again. And just imagine, if you had a daughter and your nephew were to go and start spreading rumors that your daughter had done some grievous thing, and now your nephew comes to you, I need some help. My car broke down, or I can't make the rent, or how would you respond in that situation? Would you be able to overlook what your nephew has said about your daughter and still help? Because he's still a Muslim at the end of the day, and he needs help, and he's coming to you for help. Would you be able to give that help to your fellow Muslim? And then again, also from the story of the slander of Aisha, there was this, again, from the wives of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, there was a rivalry, who would be the favorite of Prophet Muhammad, who would get his attention. It's natural, they're human. And now during this slander, Zainab, who was one of the wives of the Prophet, her sister, Hamna, was going and spreading the slander as well. And for whatever reason, I guess maybe she thought she was doing her sister a favor. She would be able to bring Aisha down and that way make Zainab have a higher status in the Prophet's eyes by doing the slander, whatever it is. But when Aisha was asked about this, what was Aisha's response? So she's relating this. Zainab, among the wives of the Holy Prophet, was my strongest rival. But when in connection with the incident of the slander, the Holy Prophet ﷺ asked her opinion of me. So, again, here's an opportunity for the match to be thrown. So the Prophet is asking Zainab, what do you think about Aisha? And so Zainab says, O Messenger of Allah, I swear by Allah that I have perceived nothing in her but except piety, taqwa. So she had a perfect opportunity to throw a match, but she instead basically raised Aisha that I have no qualm, nothing about her except she's muttaqi, God conscious. And then Aisha is the one relating this. So she could have hidden this information about Zainab, but by relaying it, she's also raising up Zainab. So they're both supporting each other and strengthening each other rather than throwing the match. Now, in this next hadith, this kind of illustrates also the same point, inshallah. And again, I think you've heard this hadith before. the Sahaba, they were sitting there and with the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the Prophet pointed, coming upon you now is a man from the people of paradise. And so an Ansari man came and walked past, and he was making wudu and he's getting ready for salah. And that was that. The next day, the incident repeated itself. The Sahaba were sitting there, and the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, a man is about to come, and he's the people of the paradise. It's the same man. And he walks past. Third day, same thing happens. The Prophet says, there's a man of paradise coming. And it's the same man. And interestingly enough, we don't even know who this person is. In this hadith, we don't know who. We just know it's some guy, some random Ansari, at least from this hadith. Now, Abdullah ibn Amr, he wants to get to the bottom of this, and he wants to figure out what's so special about this person. So he makes up a story. He goes to this Sahabi, and he tells him, I had a fight with my dad. I made an oath. I'm not going to talk to him. I'm not going to have anything to do with him for 3 days. And so, is it okay if I stay with you for these 3 days? And so this Ansari was like, yeah, that's fine. You can stay with me. So Abdullah ibn Amr spends 3 days with the Sahabi, and he doesn't see anything special about him. He's not doing any tahajjud. He's not doing psalm. He's not doing, lots of sadaqah already. He notices that from verbally, his mouth is clean. He doesn't say anything bad. He's always if anything that comes out of his mouth is always good. But beyond that, he didn't really notice anything special. So then at the end of the 3 days, he's like, he goes and tells the whole story. I didn't have a fight with my dad. Nothing's wrong. The Prophet Muhammad said, that there's a man of Jannah passing by, and he kept pointing to you. And so, but I'm here. I was trying to find out what was so special about you, and I didn't see anything special. Are you able to relate to me? Like, what's so special about you? And then, the Sahabi, he was like, what you see, that's what it is. I'm nothing that I can think of. And then he's thinking a little bit more. And then he says, oh yeah, there is one thing that I can think about. Every night before I go to sleep, I forgive whoever has wronged me. And I remove any bad feelings, any ill will towards anyone from my heart. And to this, Abdullah said, this is what you have achieved, and it is something we have not accomplished. And the key thing there is, he doesn't let the day, or he doesn't go to bed with any ill will. And it's even if somebody wronged him, even if because at the end of the day, even if you're wronged, on the day of judgment, you're going to get recompense. You're going to get compensated for that. You're not going to lose anything, right? You're not going to lose anything if you are able to bear it and swallow it. You'll get rewarded for that patience and that sabr. And as opposed to many of us, what we do, unfortunately, when we go to sleep, is we're smoldering. Oh, this person did this to me. This person did this to me. Why did he talk like this? Why did he say that? He should have, I'm good, right? And we might spend hours losing sleep, smoldering about the way people have, and rightfully so, they may have wronged us. But, right, this Sahabi was able to achieve paradise because he let it go. He's not burning up over that sort of stuff. Inshallah, I'll continue in the next part of the khutbah with a few more stories, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This next story is actually not about the Sahaba, but it's kind of leading into the rest of the khutbah, inshallah. There was a few years ago, there was an event that took place, a special athletics event for physically and mentally disabled youth. So it was like a 50-yard meter. And so you have 9 contestants, and each of them, they have a variety of either physical or mental issues with them. And so, they're lining up at the starting line, the gun goes off, and they start to race. Now, 8 of them are able to, start moving forward. One of them is not able to move forward, trips, falls, starts crying. And then the other 8, they stop with the racing, they turn around and they go back and they start consoling the 9th, the one that was not able to proceed. They start consoling him, telling him don't cry. Then they link their arms together, and then they pass the finish line together. And subhanAllah, when we think about our Muslims around us, should we not have this sort of attitude that we want all of the Muslims to make it to Jannah, as opposed to breaking up and pointing fingers and casting doubts and suspicion and again, I don't need to go into details. I think we all know what we do, right? And I want to again show how, again, going back to the Sahaba, how they exemplified this vision very well, mashallah, that everybody needs to make it, all the Muslims. Even if it's a race. It is a race, we are competing with each other, but we want everybody to make it to the finish line, inshallah. So if we consider the fitna of the Battle of Siffin, right? You had the Muslims with Ali radiallahu anhu, and then you had the Muslims behind Muawiyah. It was a massive battle that took place. Tens of thousands of Muslims passed away in that battle. It's horrific. Several days that this took place. And it was Muslims on both sides. After several days, the fighting, finally subsided, and the Muslims are now getting ready they're trying to, have a reconciliation, and Ali is going to meet Muawiyah. And as he's, passing through all of these dead Muslims, Ali is saying, he's pointing, and again, he's you can hear him saying this as he's walking, and there's the dead Muslims from his side, and he's pointing to them, and he's saying, these are the people of paradise. And scattered amongst them also are Muawiyah's men, and he's pointing to them also. And now here is, subhanAllah, you can see the foresight of Ali. He says, these are the people of paradise. And this is pointing to the people of Muawiyah, who are just now killing his people. And he says, and the affair is now between myself and Muawiyah. So what is he doing there? Just unpack that. If he had instead said, these are the people of paradise, pointing to his people, and he had pointed to Muawiyah's people and said, these are the people of hellfire, what would have happened to the Muslims? Could they come together? We need to reconcile, we need to come together. And so by saying, look, they're going to paradise, and this dispute that took place, it's just between me and Muawiyah, he's basically telling the Muslims, you should not hold any grudge against each other. Don't fight each other. Leave it. It's between me and Muawiyah now. We'll deal with it. So it was subhanAllah, not only do they not throw the match, but they do what they can to reconcile and bring the Muslims together. And then I will end with this story, inshallah. And again, as I'm relating these stories, it's important that we think reflectively upon ourselves. Am I a match, or am I a brick within the wall that's supporting my fellow Muslims? That was the whole purpose of this exercise, for us to do self-reflection and see, are we the match or the brick? And obviously we should try to be the supporting brick rather than throwing the matches. And so this last story, subhanAllah, is about Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. During his Khalifa, when he was the Khalifa, he's, a group, a delegation from Taif comes. So this is Taqif, the tribe of Taqif, Bani Taqif. And so basically, they're sitting there with him from Taif. So this is like maybe, you could say like 3 to 4 years after the Battle of Taif, right? There was the big battle after the conquest of Mecca. The Muslims had a big battle in Taif. And so basically, Abu Bakr, you really just imagine if you're sitting there at this point in time. Abu Bakr is sitting there with the delegation from Taif, and he pulls out an arrow. And in those days, in that day, when you want an arrow, you got to make it yourself. You just don't go to the corner store and you just give me 10 arrows or 50 arrows. If you want an arrow, you have to sit down and you got to make that arrow yourself. So you're going to know that that's your arrow. So he pulls out an arrow and he's showing it to the delegation, and he's asking him, does anyone recognize this arrow? And so one of them actually pipes up and says, yeah, that is my arrow. That I made that arrow. And so Abu Bakr says, this is the arrow that killed my son Abdullah. And imagine if he just stopped there. Right? Back in the Battle of Taif, Abdullah was hit by an arrow, and it took a little while, but eventually he did die. And can you imagine that? So basically, this was an injury that took not like death in a day, but months. He was lingering with this pain, and he eventually died from that arrow wound. And so now Abu Bakr, he has that arrow. He's the Khalifa, and now this person said, yeah, that's my arrow. What does Abu Bakr do at that time? He says, Alhamdulillah, who honored him, he's referring to his son, through you, because his son now became a shaheed, and did not humiliate you through him, because he was a non-Muslim at that time. Now he's a Muslim. It's all good. It's all good. The person who killed his son is right there, and it's all good. It's fine. Can you imagine doing that? SubhanAllah. It's just mind-boggling. But that was, to illustrate that point is how, and one of the reasons why they were such a great generation. And, we're so far from that. But inshallah, we should strive for that, of course. Inshallah. And so in summary, be a brick, not a match. When you have a chance to throw that match, hold it. Don't throw the match. Try to be a support for your fellow Muslim, inshallah. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة